If you are putting in the work to get healthier and you're frustrated with where you're at, you're not alone, and this video is for you. I had an interesting conversation and we're going to dive into that. I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've had the pleasure of working with over 5,000 patients, helping them optimize their brain function, their body function, and then supply the energy to that. So no matter what environment they're in, they can pull the stuff that they need to get the outcome that they want. So I was having an interesting conversation the other day, and it's something that I know a lot of other people are struggling with as well, and I think it's going to help other people. So we're going to dive into that. And I know that there are a lot of people that are putting in a ton of work on their health. They're frustrated because they're not getting the results that they want. And so they shift directions, right? They try something else, they put in the work, they're frustrated with it, and they're just constantly in that shifting gears type of situation, not getting the results they want, ending up frustrated. And sooner or later, what that ends up with is we quit, right? Because the way that the brain works is we have to have some sort of reward or be able to see that reward coming in the future in some way, shape, or form. So if we're putting in all the work and we get frustrated, we're going to stop doing it sooner or later. If we're not getting the returns that we want, we're going to shift gears and try something else. And a lot of times, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? It seems like that other plan is going to be easier than what we're doing. It may work better, and it's definitely going to be easier, so let's just shift gears and let's go to that. An example of this would be, you see a lot of people that are either trying to lose weight, they're trying to get their blood sugar under control, whatever that may be, right? And what they end up doing is they try one supplement. They're like, okay, this supplement is going to help with my hunger cravings because my hunger cravings are the problem. If I weren't so hungry all the time, I wouldn't eat so much sugar. I wouldn't eat the things that are just kind of like, available at the time that I'm hungry, and that wouldn't raise my blood sugar. Reasonable thought, right? And so they try this supplement and they're like, man, this just isn't working the way that I thought it would. So they're like, oh man, the problem is the way I'm making energy. So I'm going to try this supplement over here that's supposed to help with my energy production. So they switch supplements and they go to this one over here and they take it for a few weeks and they're like, oh, I don't notice any difference. So, maybe if I were to try this over here, then this would be more beneficial. And they're constantly in that cycle of try one thing, try another thing, try something else. And you see these people that get stuck in these fad diets, right? They try one fad diet. One week they're doing, keto, and the next week they're doing Atkins, and the next week they're doing something else. And they're constantly in that spiral. And in and of themselves, any of those diets will probably work for you. However, when you're constantly switching, a lot of times you'll switch before you see the benefits, or you'll switch over and you'll do the thing and it's not sustainable, right? When we have something that's very, very restrictive, we can't sustain that for long periods of time. And when we can't sustain something, we get frustrated and we quit. And when we quit, a lot of times people end up gaining the weight back, right? And you may notice this on some of these supplements too. You might say, all right, this has been very, very good for me. But you run out of it and you're like, well, I probably don't need it anymore. So you stop taking it and you're right back to where you were. You're right back in that same cycle. And then you get distracted by this over here and you start trying this other supplement or this other diet or this other exercise or whatever it may be. And you're just constantly switching it up. And this is kind of akin to, learning a language, right? You jump in and you start learning a language, and in the beginning you're just like overwhelmed because everything is new, everything is different, and you start to be like, this is miserable. But if you stick with it for a while, you start to recognize this means this. This means this. This means this. We start to get that dictionary of different words that we can associate with things, and it starts to spiral, just like a toddler that's learning a language, right? They say one word right. They start out, and it doesn't make any sense at all when they say something, but sooner or later they stumble on something, and you're like, yes, that's it. And you reward them, and that reward keeps them going, and they repeat that word over and over again, and pretty soon they accidentally say another word, and it continues down that pathway. They have to figure all this out. But a lot of what we're doing is not learning that language and continuing to spiral it into a bigger and bigger vocabulary in that language. We learn 5 or 6 words in this language, and then we're like, oh man, this is tough. Like I don't recognize anything in this. I wish this were easier. And so we move over and we start learning this other language, and we're starting over from scratch, right? And we're like, okay, well, we're just starting out. So we learned 5 or 6 words in this language. We're like, man, this is tough. I don't know that I really want to. I didn't want to go there anyway, right? So we start and we're constantly switching. And when we do that, we never make progress. But just like a snowball, if we start with that snowball and we just keep rolling it and keep rolling it and keep rolling it, we see that snowball start to build bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where we truly make the progress. And this is something that that we all need to work on, right? Because there's areas of all of our lives that we do this, and there's nobody that's immune to this. And some people are really, really good in business and really, really bad at family, right? Some people are really, really good at family and really, really bad at health. Some people are really, really good at health and really, really bad at finances. It's throughout, like whatever the situation may be, we all struggle with this. But when we can sit down and realize that the other path is not easier than what we're taking, the other path is not necessarily better than what we're taking, and we stay on that path and we stay with these changes and we look and we actually evaluate life and say, this is something that I can do for the short term and sustain for the long term, right? Because if I ask you to take a supplement, you could probably do that the rest of your life. But if I ask you to change your diet and I make it a very, very restrictive diet, you may not be able to do that for the rest of your life, right? It's very difficult to stay on a low-carb diet the rest of your life. But if we look at something that is more moderate, more midline, where we look at like the Mediterranean diet or different things like that, that's something that's a little bit more sustainable. It has a little bit more flexibility. It's something that more people are going to be able to do for a longer period of time. And when we can carry out those consistent actions over a period of time, that's where you're going to make the change to your health. That's where you're going to make the change to your business. That's where you're going to make the change with your family. That's where you're going to make change. No matter what we're talking about, that consistency over time is where you see this. So, like I said, this is a conversation I had with somebody that I think it's applicable to all of us. It's something that, made me kind of look at myself and say, there are a lot of things that I myself can apply that to. I looked at my patient base. There's a lot of things that a lot of us can apply to this. So I hope that it helps. As always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I know that's your most valuable resource. So, I appreciate you spending some of that with me. If there's somebody that can benefit from this, share this message with them. So it's something that, like I said, there's a lot of people that can absolutely learn a lot from this. Or not necessarily learn from this, but a lot of people that need to hear this because they're frustrated with where they're at. They're putting in the work. And before they get burnt out and stop putting in the work, let them hear a message like this so it keeps them going forward. So I love you. I appreciate you. And I'll catch you on next week's video.